All right. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans, and we have been kicking it off here on Monday morning. Today is December 2nd. You can find our website by going to americasvoicenow.org. We encourage you to participate with us, learn everything you can about what is happening in America, fight back. One of our mottos is delivering truth and exposing mainstream propaganda. Ladies and gentlemen, you're being tricked and fooled and misdirected and misled by the media in this country. You need to utilize alternative media to fight back. Educate yourself, inform yourself, and then take that education and information and share it with your circle of influence, your personal circle. I don't care if it's the 3 guys you go hunting with, or if it's the 10 people that you are a member of an organization with. I don't care if it's the 5 guys you have lunch with on a routine basis at your job. I don't care if it's your church, your school, whatever it is, your civic organization. You share and educate those around you. We're in the closing days of losing liberty and freedom in America, and it is time for you to do something about it. We are losing our Second Amendment. The United States of America is literally about to have our Second Amendment stolen from us. You know, there's a gun ban that was signed in 1988. And at the time, nobody really cared because it wasn't possible, but it banned all plastic firearms. Now, they're about to renew that ban. And I got to tell you, they're looking to do this in the face of the fact that now 3D printing is available. And as a result, 3D printing can print a gun literally made of plastic. It can actually print a physical weapon that you can use. And the technology is so sophisticated at this point, you can print an AR-15, folks. The only thing you need is a piece of steel for the barrel and some receivers. There are, literally minimal metal parts necessary. But I got to tell you, you can even make a single-shot weapon completely out of plastic. And they want nothing to do with this. They are desperate to try to seek and extend this ban on national security grounds. Let me tell you something. That I want you to think for a moment. Just think for a minute. What was it that our founders told us about why you need to own weapons? It's not to hunt. It's not to go out target shooting. It's not to take out a duck or a deer. It is to protect your nation against tyranny. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't see tyranny in everything that's going on around us today, you're blind, or you're not looking, or you're willfully turning your head away. Our nation is under a terrible slide. We are in the process right now of falling into fascism and tyranny. And this is just another example of that. When they seek this ban on national security grounds, the next thing you know, it'll go through mission creep where they'll be inserting other things. Well, you can only have so many plastic parts or some other nonsense. And the truth of the matter is, let me tell you something. This is our country. It's our nation. It's our Bill of Rights. It's our Second Amendment, not theirs to take away from you. And your unwillingness to recognize that, your unwillingness to sit down and fight back, is going to give them all the power that they need to strip you of the one thing that keeps them from turning this into a literal totalitarianistic dictatorship. If you trust this president, if you trust this Congress not to turn this nation into an authoritarian regime, man, I'll tell you what, you are either blind or you've got an enormous amount of trust for the goodwill of humanity. But I can tell you this, it was our founders who told us, forget about trusting men's good judgment and good ethics and goodwill. Bind them down with the chains of a constitution, because that is the only way in which you may keep your nation free. That is the only way in which you may keep liberty. That is the only way in which you may hand that off to those generations that come after us. Right now, They are trying to pass new legislation, and you need to get on the phone and call your House and your Senate members and tell them any passage of any limitation on firearms, plastic, metal, cloud, air, smoke, I don't care what it's made out of, that is an act of treason and an unconstitutional violation of your right to bear arms. Period. End of discussion. You have the right to own anything you want, plastic or otherwise. I don't want to hear it's about national security. That's what we've been hearing about the NSA. That's what we've been hearing about the FBI sitting there and doing the NSA's dirty work on the backside, where the NSA is prohibited legally from getting it. The FBI is doing it for them. That's what we heard about the Fast and Furious scandal. That's what we heard about the IRS scandal. I'm tired of hearing that lie. You know, Franklin said to us that if you were willing to trade your security, if you're willing to trade your freedom and your liberty for security and safety, you'll end up with neither. Remember that adage, because it's absolutely true. You need to pick up the telephone and call your Congress animals and let them know, under no certain terms, that if they vote to limit your Second Amendment rights, plastic or otherwise, 3D printed gun or otherwise, that is an act of treason against the Constitution of the United States of America that they have sworn an oath to uphold. 202-224-3121. Let me give it to you again. 202-224-3121. If you're not a normal regular listener, I'm telling you right now, you better start keeping a pad and pen handy when you listen to this program, because we give out information that you absolutely have to have all the time. And I don't want people to send me an email or post something on Facebook. Hey, could you give me that number again? Write it down, put it in your phone, store it under Congressional Switchboard. It's 202-224-3121. And what you do with that number is you call up there and ask for your Congress animal, whatever that Congress animal's name may be. And if you don't know your own congressman at this point in time, both Senate and House, shame on you. Go do a lookup and find out. You need to burn their phone lines to the ground on this, America, and tell them, and this is going to come as early as today, so you better get on the phone right now. 204-224-3121. You tell them that any ban on plastic weapons is a ban on the Second Amendment, and you will act as if that was an act of treason, violating their oath of office and their oath to defend and protect the Constitution. It doesn't say in the Constitution that you can own a firearm except for plastic ones. Did you hear what I just said? It doesn't matter whether or not it's plastic or metal. And by the way, they're now printing 3D metal guns, and they don't want you to have access to that. In fact, they've gone so far as to make it illegal just to distribute the plans for people who want to buy a 3D printer at home. Do you listen? Don't you see what's happening? The truth of the matter is here, everyone is looking to subvert and take your rights away. Your First Amendment right of free speech is under threat. They're already talking about trying to license journalists so that they can knock guys like me out of the box. They're already talking about being able to limit you already know that your free speech in terms of being able to protest your government's been stripped from you. Go ahead and try to create a protest in Washington, D.C. and see what happens. You've got to meet in a certain place at a certain time. You've got to get an appointment. You're allowed to go only this place. You've got to stay within these fenced lines. That's not what this country is about. Your right to worship has been stripped from you because you're now forced to sign on for things like abortion and Obamacare, whether you like it or not. Your Second Amendment being taken from you will result in the final straw that will break this camel's back. Your Fourth Amendment has already been subverted against illegal search and seizure. The courts routinely make rulings that say that the cops can pretty much do doggone anything they want. Not to mention the fact that they are sitting there allowing them to use GPS and all of this tracking from the NSA. I put up an article this morning about how police are actually putting up these false cell site towers that capture all of the data from everybody surrounding it, anybody who drives through its zone of coverage, and it captures your phone calls, your GPS tracking, all of that information, and it sucks it up. In Seattle, they put these light poles up that were actually tracking you within a 1,000 mouse trail droppings behind you for the last 1,000 places your GPS had tracked you. Don't you smell it, America? This is 1984, and it's coming to life right in front of your eyes. Your Fourth Amendment right has also been subverted because you are required by law to sign up for Obamacare. Well, guess what? It says right on Obamacare's website that all the information that you submit can be used for audit purposes, investigation purposes, law enforcement purposes. Oh, really? Yeah, you didn't know that, did you? So basically, here's the deal. Everything that you put into the Obamacare system is shared with every other federal agency, including law enforcement and the IRS. And they're looking to use that information against you. Your Fifth Amendment right has been waived because you are required to submit that information, which automatically incriminates you. And so you don't even have the right to say, I plead the Fifth because I don't want to incriminate myself. Because another law has been passed that says you've got to submit your information. It's ridiculous. Don't you see it? If at this point in time you haven't grasped the realities of where we're headed, I got to tell you, you have far more trust than anyone I have ever met. The plans are out there for these metal weapons and plastic weapons. Any limitation on your ability to own a firearm is merely a restriction on your Second Amendment right. And the Second Amendment does not say you can own a firearm as long as it's not made of plastic, as long as it doesn't hold this many rounds, as long as it doesn't shoot more than one round with a pull of the trigger. That's all marketing nonsense. They've been chipping away at the pillar of this thing for decades now, for 100 years. And now they've almost got it to the point where the pillar is about to collapse. And I got to tell you something, folks, it's the one pillar that holds up the roof of liberty and freedom for the whole nation. You know why the Japanese said that they wouldn't attack the United States in World War II? They said because there are so many guns there that there would be a gun behind every rock and every blade of grass. Do you know why we're not in a totalitarian government, fascist government right now? Because there are 300 million guns out there in the hands of 100 million gun owners. That's why. Recognize what's happening around you. Our rights are being stripped from us as rapidly as they can possibly be. Don't you smell what's happening around you? The Undetectable Firearm Act is set to expire on midnight, December 9th. It was passed in 98, and it was renewed again in 88, and it was renewed in 98 and again in 2003. But that's because 3D printers weren't widely available. In fact, at that point in time, don't forget, in 2003, there was an idea, but nobody had actually brought it to fruition. Now, you can buy a 3D printer and literally print a piece of plastic. I mean, you can print a keychain and a gun. And they don't want that. Why? Because, one, under ATF regulations, which, by the way, we can touch on that in a moment, but the ATF and the Second Amendment are so diametrically opposed, it's like matter and antimatter occupying the same space. You can't have a free Second Amendment, a free nation and liberty, and an ATF agency whose sole function is to limit your ability to own a firearm. And I'm going to tell you, they're working to restrict your access to ammunition because they just closed the last smelting plant for lead in the United States of America. The Herculaneum plant right here in Missouri, in Herculaneum, Missouri, was the last U.S. smelter of its kind making smelting lead. And it's closing its doors December 31st. You know what that means? Ammo prices are going to surge. You know what that means? That all these guns that are out there are shortly going to become nothing more than clubs. A gun without ammo may as well be a stick or a cane. It's worthless to you. And I'm here to tell you, the boom in 3D technology printing has changed the way in which America can print and own a gun. Do you know that under the the ATF's regulations, you can print and manufacture? You can't print. You can manufacture your own weapon, and you're not required to serialize it. You're not required to put to notify anybody that you made it. You can build your own weapon. It's 100% legal. Now, it's 100% legal under the rules of tyranny. But it's 100% legal for you to build whatever you want, anytime, anyway, anyhow, anywhere, any what. You know why? Because our founders told us very clearly that any law which subverts the Constitution is no law at all. It is null and void on its face. Because Congress doesn't have the right to subvert the Constitution. Neither does the president. Neither do the courts. The simple truth is America has fallen victim to this marketing scheme and scam that we've been told that, well, everything is subject to what Congress wants to say. Congress says it's illegal, so it must be. That's a lie. And it's being perpetrated on you every single day. The truth of the matter is, Congress doesn't have a right to say anything about what your rights are. They really don't. You know, I can't encourage you strongly enough to read the words of our founders. You know, I'm going to read you two things that I think are important for you to know, both of them by Thomas Jefferson. And you know, the ATF limits your ability to own firearms utilizing the Commerce Clause in an unconstitutional fashion by saying that the Commerce Clause really gives them the power to regulate all commerce in the country, and if a gun crosses state lines, therefore it's illegal, and blah, 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 blah. Here's what Thomas Jefferson said about that. Our tenet ever was that Congress does not have unlimited powers to provide for the general welfare, but were restrained to those specifically enumerated, and that, as it was never meant that they should provide for that welfare, but by the exercise of those enumerated powers, so it could not have been meant that they should raise money for purposes which the enumeration did not place under their action and discretion. Consequently, the specification of powers is a limitation of the purposes to which they may raise money. So let me translate that for you into modern English. We believed that, and we always believed, and we all collectively believed, our tenet ever was, that Congress does not have unlimited power to provide for the general welfare, that the Constitution put in place restraints that were specifically enumerated. And since we never meant that they should have unlimited power to provide for the general welfare, except by the exercise of these very limited delegated authorities that we give them, no one should take it to mean that they should be able to raise money for purposes which did not fall up underneath those limited delegated powers. Consequently, the specification of powers that was outlined in the Constitution is a limitation of the purposes for which Congress may actually raise money. So Congress is raising money every day to burn your rights down, utilizing Congress and the ATF, utilizing laws and regulations which unconstitutional administrative agencies pass every single day. Look, the Second Amendment is a right that was given to you not by Congress. It was given to you by God and your Creator and natural law and nature's God. The right to self-defense and the right to defend your nation and your state and your county and your government, those rights are inherent to you, whether you live in America or you live in Botswana. The truth of the matter is we're the only ones that ever actually put it in writing and enumerated it. But it doesn't change the fact that every human being has those natural rights. They were endowed with them by their Creator, not by Congress, not by the Constitution, not even by our founders. All they did was put it in writing. And what they said was that we give Congress a very limited scope of power by which they can promote general welfare of the people. But Congress has completely usurped that, and they've taken it, and they've taken a lunch bag, a brown paper sack that you would carry that would handle a sandwich or two, and they've turned it into this massive dumping ground where they pile all manner of treasonous acts against America. Now, I'm gonna give you a follow-up quote from Thomas Jefferson that really sums this whole issue up for the Second Amendment. Because I got to tell you, I don't think most Americans realize, because they don't read. They don't read what the founders actually said. Go read the Federalist Papers and get a hold of Mary Webster's the Federalist Papers converted to modern English, so it makes it a little easier to understand. But also read the original Federalist Papers and Mary Webster's commentaries on them side by side, so that you're seeing her interpretation of what their Old English was. Because I get it, it's kind of hard to understand. But if you read those, if you understand those, if you're paying attention to that, you will recognize that under no circumstances is Congress acting constitutionally at all. All of this stuff was prohibited. That's why when I tell you, don't believe what the courts tell you either. Because the courts sit there and say, well, it's our job to interpret what the Constitution meant. If you want to know what the Constitution meant, why don't you go ask the guys who read it? They wrote it all down for you. It's called the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist Papers. Go read the writings of Thomas Jefferson. Go read the writings of Madison. Those were the guys who created it and wrote it. Why would you take the word from some judge who's guessing and has bias, rather than read it and hear from the horse's mouth? Here's the other comment Jefferson made, and it's directly related to the Second Amendment. The spirit of resistance to government is so valuable on certain occasions that I wish it would always be kept alive. It will often be exercised when wrong, but better so than not to be exercised at all. I like a little rebellion now and then. It is like a storm in the atmosphere. Listen to that. The spirit of resistance to government is so valuable on certain occasions that I wish it to be always kept alive. It will often be exercised when wrong, but better so than not to be exercised at all. I like a little rebellion now and then. It is like a storm in the atmosphere. Ask yourself, when was the last time you rebelled? Or are you just a sheeple doing what you're told? Are you just marching down the funnel that you're given? Going where you're told to go? Looking at things the way that you're told to look at them? Are you falling in line with the diarrhea surge of propaganda that is pouring out of the orifice of this government and this press, who has nothing more, they act as nothing more than a mouthpiece for the government? If you are watching and reading mainstream media, and you're not doing it with a critical thinking eye to separate the wheat from the chaff, then you're being fooled and played. If you're listening to alternative media, you still have to use the same critical thinking eye and ear and read. But at the same point in time, at least you're getting truth where the mainstream media refuses to even acknowledge some of these stories exist. You know, John Adams came out and said, a constitution of government once changed from freedom can never be restored. Liberty once lost is lost forever. Wow. That's one heck of a statement. A constitution of government once changed from freedom can never be restored. Liberty once lost is lost forever. Man, that is, I mean, look. These are the guys who actually did all the studying and the research that all of our people in Congress don't do. They read 2,000-page books all the time. And you can't even get Congress to read a 2,000-page law that they passed illegally. It's called Obamacare. America, get out there and fight. Any way you can. Use your creativity. Be civilly disruptive. Be civilly disobedient in everything that you do. Get on the phone. Fight back against this stuff. Tell these people in Congress that we are watching them and that we are acting upon their actions to hold them accountable. That a law that would prohibit you from owning a plastic firearm is a violation of the Second Amendment. End of argument. 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. I mean, I don't know what more you want in order to get this thing resolved, because we're, at this point, listen, they are completely stripping us of our ability to operate and live in freedom and liberty. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we're going to tackle our third subject. The NSA is watching your porn habits, your internet habits, and they're doing it for one reason: to coerce you. We'll be right back.